So Thankbox is an online group card and cash collection service. So think of it back when you were in an office, someone had an occasion, like somebody would be leaving or had a birthday, their manager or someone else would remember it last minute, run to the shop, get the world's, fastest card, then, discreetly pass it around to everyone, get an envelope full of coins. I've not actually seen a coin for a year now, but yeah, coins, and then, give it to the person. So it was nice, the person always loved it, but the whole process was always a hassle. And with COVID, it was impossible. So I had the idea in 2019, bought the domain, started prototyping it. But then I had to pause because I had other things going on. And when lockdown happened last year in March 2020, I was like, I know this is going to sound trite, but I was like meditating one morning, because I try and do that every morning for 10 minutes. And just like, I think it was like the 10th of March or something, it was in my journal. And just this idea hit me, like, you should do Thankbox now. Like, if you don't do Thankbox now, like, there's no ever, you won't do it ever if you don't do it now. So it completely ruined my meditation, but just kind of stuck there. So that's when I decided, okay, I need to do it. And I decided it'll be really small in scope. It'll be really quick. I found, I had my designer who I work with for Curated. She's called Barbara. And I found Joe Pritchard also through CodeBase, who's a really good web developer. And he agreed to actually build the first version for free in exchange for a profit sharing agreement later on when it actually started making money, which was great because it de-risked the whole proposition for me. Since the beginning, I wanted to bootstrap it. Like, I didn't want to raise funding. So I had to make sure that the constraints were actually met. So we launched it in May last year. And since then, it's been going really well. I think just today it's passed 30,000 pounds in revenue. We issue over $50,000 worth of gift cards every month that people collect for their friends. Just yesterday, we had our first day where over 2,000 messages were posted on different cards in a single day, which was amazing. So yeah, it's been a hell of a journey.
Thanks so much, Val. And I also would plug meditation as a nice thing to do. Trite as some may think it is, well, they just need to meditate more. I kind of, as a follow-up question to that, and I think you kind of touched on it already, but just to kind of explore that, what was it, the kind of impact of having more time at home, or really a bolt from a blue? What was the kind of the moment or the process that really took you from that seed of an idea to making it into like a kind of entrepreneurial reality? Because I think everyone has ideas, and it's about making that into something excellent and physical and real that can be a real struggle. So I wondered if you had any insight on that side of things.
Well, I've always, ever since I did Curated, and it failed, I always knew that I'd try something again, because I have this need, I guess, to do a product. Like, I've always wanted to make something and put it out in the world and actually see people, paying money for it, enjoying it. So whenever, I had the whole experience in March, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this right. And I'm going to de-risk it as much as possible. So to get the first bit of motivation going and get the first actionable steps, to me, I needed to make sure that even if it failed, I still got something from it. So for example, when I didn't know anything about web development or like full stack development, backend, whatever a database was. But I knew that I wanted this to be a website, not an app, like I've been doing all this time. So I thought, okay, even if this fails, at least I'm going to learn how to make a website, or I'm going to learn how to be a full stack developer, which will help me later on if I just continue contracting and not doing anything else. And especially when I had this, agreement with Joe, I knew that, okay, he knows a lot about this, so I can just directly learn from him. And also, I kept my scope really short. I said, okay, I want this to make 100 quid a month. That's what I said at the first time. Like, if it makes that, I'll be happy. obviously, the goalposts always move after you achieve a certain level, but whenever you have achievable goals like that, it's much easier to get started, and it's much easier to get to the next step. Like, you shouldn't just say, I want to build this startup and I want it to make 5,000 quid in its first month. Like, you're just setting yourself up for major disappointment. But if you make it like small, manageable chunks, like, I want to build this feature, I want to launch it, I want to get one user. Like the day I launched it, I got my first sale. And it was a surprise to me because like hardly anyone knew about it. I have like a minor Twitter following, but a friend of mine from Twitter who works at Ubisoft actually used it. And launching and having your sale the first day, like the burst of motivation that gave me, even though it's a $5, it costs a $5 for the basic version, but the burst of motivation that gave you, like I went running and I did like a 10K that day. It was so great. And it still lasts. I'm making 50 sales a day now instead of one, but that feeling is what kind of kept me going. Is that early validation, that as soon as you get to that early point of validation, that's why I wanted to build this really quickly, because as soon as I got that early validation, I knew, okay, I can keep going.
Oh, we actually have a hand up in the audience, so I say go for it. And we'll loop back around. I've got some more questions myself, but Alison, please do go ahead.
Sweet. Hey Val, it's nice to see you.
Hey, Alison.
For others that maybe don't know me, I work at CodeBase in Edinburgh, so I've seen Val around for quite a wee while. But I've got a question around, because obviously, like I meet with quite a lot of really early stage startups and people with ideas, and a common question is usually for people looking to find, that employee number one, or that help, or that kind of tech support side, especially if someone maybe doesn't come from a tech environment. And you mentioned that you met your colleague, and I forget his name now, who helped you build
Joe Pritchard.
Yes, yeah. Joe Pritchard, sorry, who helped you build the product. And I just wanted to know if you had any advice for other people out there on how you build that trust with a new colleague or
Right. Well, all the people that I work with, I've kind of met serendipitously almost. I mean, I met Joe because he actually did some work for me back when I was building my previous startup. And CodeBase, Code Desking was great for this because we used to meet there all the time. And even after Curated kind of got shut down, me and him were chatting, and I shared the idea with Thankbox with him back in 2019, and he said, what would you use to build this? And he said, I would use this tech stack or whatever, because it gets you going really quickly. And we just started chatting that way. So when I actually decided to build it, he was the logical person that I came to address. And the same with my designer. We met again for my previous startup, so I knew she was really good. So having those two people and two relationships in place just got the whole process going really, really quickly. So you can try and build those relationships manually, I guess, by going on to events or meetups. Obviously a bit harder now with COVID. But yeah, it just kind of, if you want to try and build things, you're going to find these people in your life one way or another. So yeah, so with me, it's kind of, lucky chance almost. I wish I could tell you more. There's no secret formula.
No, that's great. Thank you.
It's a really interesting point. I think, you'll be shocked by how many people in your life are incredibly talented, so long as you're kind of open to it. And also, did you hear that, everyone? He said, go to events. Ooh, well, that's something to write down in the old diary. I kind of wanted to move a little bit away, Val, to speak a little bit about the bootstrapping side of things, because I think that's an area where you've had some incredible success. And I'm kind of curious, partially to ask 2-in-1 questions, so it's a bit cheeky, but I hope you'll indulge me. It seems that you were very clearly wanted to bootstrap this, that you didn't really want to kind of go down any kind of investment route. What was kind of your main motivation for this? And How did you achieve it so impressively? Because it's pretty bodacious, badass. I'm not sure the right word to use, but it's very impressive.
I'll take badass, definitely.
Yeah.
Right. So I have seen, companies that have raised money. I know enough about that side of startup life, and I'm not against raising money. I think for some specific types of companies, you pretty much have to, just to get it off the ground. For me personally, with Thankbox, I wanted to do that limitation for two reasons. The first one is me and my wife, we're originally from Bulgaria. We have zero support network here, and we have a daughter, so I try and be quite an involved dad. And there's not really someone else that can help us out. So if you raise money and you get investors, there's a certain amount of pressure there to deliver and to grow at a certain rate. And I just decided at this stage in my life, I didn't want that pressure, but I didn't want that to prevent me from actually building something. So I told myself, if I'm going to have an idea, it should be a bootstrappable idea. And that's why I loved, and that's why Thankbox hooked itself in my head so much, because it's really small in scope. I mean, it's grown massively, but the key idea hasn't really changed. It's a group card and gift card service. It's not that big, so it's manageable. It has to be manageable. But obviously, when you're bootstrapping, you don't have a lot of money to play with. So it's important to know, from the very beginning, how much you're going to invest, what of your own personal money, because you're still kind of investing. I'm my own VC essentially, right? So I actually had like a very honest conversation with my wife at the time, and I said, okay, how much money would we both feel comfortable me putting into this every month, and how much are we going to wait until it actually becomes profitable? So that's where the original formula came along. I tried to keep my costs as low as possible, and it was actually great because constraints breed innovation. I've always heard of this before, but you definitely find out when you do this and you have to bootstrap it, you can definitely, make things smaller, do things quicker, take more risks. So I would say that's how I did it.
Thank you. Definitely thinking about checking my Monzo, wondering what I can achieve. I have a question here from Ollie about communities, which I kind of had a similar question, so I'll kind of amalgamate them into a sort of multifaceted, two-headed monster. But you coming from Bulgaria and starting here, you didn't necessarily have those support networks already in place, as you were saying. So where did you go to find that community and peers and advice, which would help you support you on this journey? And all these more specific question is, were there any online communities that you would recommend, given that this was during early COVID, there weren't folk knocking about having coffee, that would be really handy, specifically in the early startup kind of zone where you're just like fresh idea, getting the ball rolling?
Very loaded question, Oli. I like it. So one of the communities I discovered a couple years ago is a place called Indiehackers.com, and it's especially it's like a forum and a news website, and they even have a podcast that is centered around bootstrap companies. And it's one of the best and most supportive communities in the world. Like you can go there and do a post like, how would you build this? Can you rate my landing page? Can you give me some advice? And it has one of the kindest people in the world, because they're just fellow bootstrappers, trying to make their, first $100 or whatever. So that definitely helped. It was through that community and the podcast that I discovered a lot of, other online reading reading blogs and books that helped me refine my understanding and knowledge about startups and what you should be doing. And the great thing about Indie Hackers is they have this thing where when you have your account, you can add a product, and then you can start posting updates about that product. So I've done that since the beginning of Thankbox. I've had like 21 updates now where I've just followed, I just update the story like, did my first sale, or did my first 6 sales, or, you know, past 600 sold Thankboxes, and it's really great because, you know, people start following you and you know, they start cheering you on. So it's great to get that little bit of external motivation. You know, as much as a founder, you try and be, you know, intrinsically motivated and get internal motivation. You know, everybody would be lying if they said that they didn't need that little bit of external, you know, help and external pat on the shoulder, you know, from time to time. So that really helped. But also, you know, just CodeBase. CodeBase as a community is great. A lot of my early customers and early users were from CodeBase. Like, for example, Louis Stevenson from Crichton. She's probably bought like 20 Thankboxes at this stage. She was great. She really got the idea in the beginning. And because, you know, we work through that CodeBase community, I can really talk to these people and get really good, solid feedback, especially in the beginning. You know, you just launch your product. There's obviously a bunch of things wrong from it. There's things missing. And when you have people that you can feel you can talk to a bit more than just, you know, an anonymous user, it's invaluable. I got the same from, you know, previous places I worked at where, you know, I had good relationships in place. And when I told them about Thankbox and they used it, you know, those people, if they like you, they want to see you succeed. So they're going to help you if you ask for advice. So yeah, I would say the combination of these two communities has just been great for me.
I will be hanging around on Indie Hackers. I'm wearing like a kind of leather jacket, and like I'll be tapping on 2 keyboards, getting into the mainframe. I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
I really kind of, I suppose a question that I'd love to ask on the back of that. It's so, I think a lot of technically minded artistic people, or, you know what, I'm even just going to say a lot of humans in general, struggle with, I don't want to say perfectionism, but there's that knowing when something's ready, right? When you put so much of your energy and your talent into a project, making, you know, that step of being like, okay, I'm putting it out to the world, knowing it's imperfect, knowing that there's going to be problems. What gave you the courage to do that? Was it, again, working within those limitations, or just being like, my money's on the line, or was there something else?
It's in large part blissful ignorance that you don't know what problems lie ahead of you. Like, I think anyone who starts on any worthwhile journey, if they knew from the beginning all the problems they would face, they would not do it. You know, I've had problems and issues with Thankbox. In fact, I have one this morning that, you know, stressed me out, but I've overcome every single one of them so far. And with every single one that you overcome, you get a little bit better at dealing with it. You kind of know that, okay, there's not one thing that is going to bring you down. You know, as long as you can manage it, as long as you've taken the necessary steps. And even if you haven't, you can always fix it. And this is true, especially in the beginning. You know, you say that you're putting something out in the world and people are going to judge it. Yeah, but just as you've put it out in the world, there's going to be like 10 people that are going to judge it, right? And even if it breaks for them, it's fine, as long as they're users that you've acquired personally, or that or that are willing to talk to you. If you're solving their problem, they're going to tell you. Like, I had a few bugs in the beginning that were just you know, embarrassing at the time. But when I think about them now, they're just funny. Like, one example is in July. So that was like 2 or 3 months after launch. I wanted to add a feature where whenever someone received the Thankbox, they could reply. And everybody who left their email with their message would get the reply from the recipient. The first time I did this and I launched it, what happened was the first person to ever reply on a Thankbox, his email got sent to everyone who had ever left a message ever on any Thankbox at the time, right? So I spammed 1,500 people at the time, right? So obviously it was embarrassing, and I fixed it, but then I didn't fix it properly, so it happened again. And I was just, you know, I was writing emails to users and I was like, you know, red in the face, embarrassed. You know, I thought, oh my God, I spammed so many people. But anyway, I fixed it. I moved on. People were, you know, nobody stopped using it because of it. But it was okay to do it at that point. There wasn't that many people. Like right now, there have been over 150,000 messages posted. You know, if a bug like this happened, it'll probably take down my mailing server to begin with. But yeah, it won't be great But I could take those risks at that point. I didn't need to make it as bulletproof because it was still very young. I just wanted to get people using it. As the product actually developed, I started treating it in a more mature way. And I think that would be my advice to anyone starting anything, even if you're a funded startup. In the beginning, move fast and break things, like Facebook say. And only once you feel like, okay, I now have customers, I now have people that I don't know using it. For the first 5 months of Thankbox, I knew everyone that was using it because I could track down where I acquired them from. But afterwards, I got people that I didn't know. So if something breaks, they won't be as understanding. So at that point I said, okay, let me try and be a bit more, let me try and be a bit more careful here. Let's do a bit more testing around the areas that actually matter. And yeah, and so far I've avoided any other, major calamities like that. But there's inevitably going to be one.
I really appreciate the candor, because I'm sure anyone who builds things knows they've had some absolute belters back in the day. So it's I think it's really great to share and be open about the tribulations that we go through. I have a couple of audience questions. I know both these members, and I'm very tempted to do impressions, but for the sake of everyone in the room, I will not. The first is from Mr. Colin Kirby, and he goes, "Hi Valentin, I hope you're well, buddy." So there you go, there's a connection there. Just going back to the bootstrapping idea, if someone kind of approached you and was like, I'm really into your project, I think this is a really good idea, I would like to invest, is that something, how would you navigate that in a kind of on a personal level, and what would your approach be, maybe in a more general sense?
Oh, Colin, didn't know you were an investor. That's good. It's good to know. Oh, that's an interesting question. I haven't thought about that. I would have to. I wouldn't say no outright. I guess I would need to find out more. I've not been through an investment or an acquisition before, so probably ask someone that has been for advice about what to do in that case. And yeah, and judge it on its merits. But for right now, I'm quite happy with having it go as it is.
Yeah, I think we all kind of dream about a windfall, but when it comes to our, businesses, there's a lot of considerations. I have something else from Ollie here. He's so engaged. Look at him, like a spring chicken. He's wondering how you came up with a price, and I think this is a really good question. Like, how do you evaluate the value of your own labor and your own product when you're coming from this sort of stage of being, doing everything yourself initially?
Yeah, pricing is hard. I guess in the beginning, how my price was, I looked at similar companies in the industry and I saw what they charged. And also, you have to charge yourself based on what you're trying to replace. So I'm trying to replace the paper card, essentially. Right? There's other online companies that do like online group cards, but the market is still fairly small. It's only during 2020 that people actually realized that online group cards were a thing. So when you're trying to replace the paper card, you have to price yourself accordingly in that space. So the price has always been $499 and actually $599 because inflation. And it hasn't really changed since then. And there's always going to be someone that's not happy at your price and someone who will tell you that you need to charge more. I ask users for feedback whenever they buy their first Thankbox. And most people, they rate it 10 out of 10. They say totally would use it again. Occasionally you get someone that just says, $4.99 is too much. You should charge more. You should charge less, or this should be free. And it's like, you get that, you get a little bit annoyed at it. Some people, they say, you shouldn't charge because you're making money off the gift card collection. Even if I try to explain to them that I don't actually make any money from gift card collections, in fact, they actually cost me a little bit. There's no point in trying to do that. There's always going to be people that are unhappy, but if on the whole people are happy and they're paying the price, I'm going to listen to those people, since they seem to be happy paying it. But yeah, it's it's definitely one of your biggest levers as a startup, the pricing. You'll be amazed that, at probably other startups, I'm kind of quite, I guess, specific in that I'm not a subscription startup. I don't charge every month, although I am thinking about doing subscription tiers later on. But for some startups that have like a monthly subscription tier, you would be surprised at how much you can raise the price and people are still going to stay with you.
It's definitely food for thought. I love a good subscription these days. Get my subscriptions coming in.
Funnily enough, people are so used to them that I still occasionally have someone that says, "You're just going to charge me for this one card, right? You're not going to charge me every month."
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to charge you every month. It's a one-off.
But it's almost come around the whole way, and definitely finding group cards, absolute nightmare. I was searching for ages. I wish I'd known about you then. I was looking for bloody cats in a hot air balloon. It was horrible. Wouldn't give it to some my granny would give. Just one last wee question from myself there, Val, and I would love to open up again to more of yourselves in the audience. So folks, if you have a question, just put up your hand with the wee reaction thing. You could physically do it as well, but if you put it with the reaction, then your little box moves, which helps me spot that you have your hand up. So please do, or put it in the chat if you'd rather. But from myself, I suppose one question I had when you're starting off a company like this, you are still Val, the human being, but you are also the company. You are representing a larger body than yourself, and particularly when it comes to getting those first customers, which for yourself are such a big motivator, and I think for most people are such a big motivator. How do you navigate being your own marketing, your own brand, as well as being a person, particularly if you're having people connect to you through your personal social media, like the person who became your customer through Twitter?
Okay. Well, first off, when you talk to people, don't ever use we if it's just you. I found it out that people are much more open to you if you just say I. I'm actually very open to people whenever someone sends me like a request and I've like a customer support or whatever, and I'm kind of late in replying, and just tell them, look, it's mainly just me. I have people helping me out, obviously, but they're doing a lot of other things in the meantime. They're not exclusively on Thankbox. And people are so much kinder after that when they just find, it's just you. And whenever I ask them for feedback or like a public review, and I say it would mean so much to me, it's great. They feel that they're actually talking to a human being. They're not talking to, Thankbox, the company. And if you are, a decent person and have people that like you, especially in the beginning, you should leverage those. And if any one of those people would be your ideal customers, you should definitely go ahead and, try and ask, at least for feedback, even if they don't use the product, just ask them to, rate the landing page, find out if it makes sense, and speak to them as yourself. There's no point in pretending to be something that you're not. There's no point in pretending to be you're a big company or whatever. And that goes to people that you know and people that you don't know. Just be honest. Like on my about page, I say we're 3 people, because it's me, my designer, Barbara is here, and Joe. Like that's the team. That's been the core team with, a couple of other people helping out occasionally. And people like that. Just people like, rooting for the small guy. You should totally lean into that when you're bootstrapping.
That's a fascinating point. I agree with Ollie. When at an early stage, it's so tempting to write we, because you do feel like I'm a real deal. I'm a we now. Who's this Max character? I'm a we.
Yeah.
Like the Queen.
Yeah.
But alas, it's maybe actually a bad shout. So that is some fantastic advice. I was wondering if anyone had any questions from the audience. Seeing all your lovely faces.
I'd love to ask a question.
Raoul, popped your hand up.
Val, lovely to hear from you. It's a real pleasure. Hey, Ollie. I'm actually really curious to know, Val, on a personal level, what is it that gets you the most excited about where you are right now, what you're doing, this unique position in life that you find yourself in? When you wake up in the morning, what do you feel most excited about?
Oof. Wow, shouldn't disappoint for that question, right? You know what? There's some days that you wake up with like an extra level of excitement, for example, because you're about to launch something really big. But for me, the important thing with what I'm doing and what my goal in life is in general is to wake up and to actually look forward to the day ahead of you. And that means looking forward to the tasks that you have to do. And ever since I started Thankbox, like not every day has been that way, but I would say that the majority of my days are that way. And I think if you're doing that, then you're probably doing well in life in general, right? You shouldn't dread the day ahead. Sometimes definitely, there's days that I know, okay, I'm gonna, there's like 5 customer support emails and things that I need to answer, and they're not pleasant, and someone it's shouting at me because they didn't like something. But in general, it's just awesome to wake up and to know that you're actually doing something that is making good money. It's making people feel good. Like this is what I love about this product. Just people email me and say, you helped me, collect video messages from my mom's 50th, and she was in tears. So whenever I get an email, I'm like, okay, day's done. I can go home. I'm already home, but yeah, I can go home and I'll be happy. So knowing that you're working on that every day helps a lot. I hope that is a sufficient answer.
Gosh, yeah, I feel like I might hand over the questioning. That got pretty deep, I think. Well, do you want to take the last couple ones from me, pal, and I'll sit back.
I do have another one, but maybe I'll leave it open for other people.
Oh no, please, by all means, if you have a follow-up, do ask.
Well, Val, I'd love to ask you as well. What is it that motivates you, like on a deep level, again, like on a core level? What, because you mentioned that when COVID started last year, the thing that got this sort of rolling with you was, I suppose, presence, right? And you're like, if I don't do this now, I might never do it. So now, almost a year on, or maybe more than a year on, actually, what is it that still motivates you? Is it the anticipation of growth? Is it the general excitement of what you're building? Is it a big picture thing where you're thinking, a decade ahead? What is it on a fundamental level that really drives you?
So I try and have long-term goals and short-term goals. And the long-term goal right now for Thankbox has become getting it to a point where it makes enough money that I don't have to, do contracting work anymore. Hopefully it's gonna get there this year at some point. And then after that, I don't know, because if I plan that far ahead, it'll probably, the plans will change. And then short term, it's just working on things that make me happy to work on them and that actually make the product better. And really, it's as simple as that. I don't think I don't think it needs to be more complicated than that. I don't think everything needs to have a super important long-term overarching goal, because as I said in the beginning, if you do things like that, you can just end up being disappointed when you don't reach them. So I have a goal to make it fully profitable for me, so I can stop working on other things, but I haven't set myself a fixed deadline as to when that needs to be. And this kind of goes back to de-risking it as much as possible for yourself, so that even if it fails right now, I sort of go through negative visualizations from time to time, and I think, okay, even if it fails right now, will I be happy? And yeah, I mean, I won't be over the moon, but I think I'll be okay, because I know for myself now that I've built something that people like and it's grown well. So it's given me an amount of confidence that even if it fails, that won't go away. Did someone else have I think Colin had a question. Did you, Colin?
Yes, I think so.
I did really briefly, but it's probably backtracking too far, but I'll say it anyway. Just going back to the we and the I thing, when you inevitably grow, which you will, I'm sure, at what point are you going to start saying we instead of I? Because I guess at some point you have to get, you'll have, well, I hope, will you have a full-time team? I guess once that happens, that probably answers it for itself, because you become more of a we, I guess.
I think when talking to customers, I would still keep the I, because I think it's just good to have a human element. Maybe when you're talking to a business partner, or someone else, in a more B2B fashion, I would be a bit more formal in that case.
Sure.
But I just fall in love with using I. I don't want.
I like it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's a fantastic insight. Hope you're good, buddy. Miss you.
I am. When are you guys bringing CodeBase back?
Save it for Skype. Right,
All
this is
right.
a formal event. This is a
we
style event. This is a we event, not an I event, Colin. All right. Any other questions for yourselves, folks? If not, I have a very important question for yourself, Val.
Oof, okay.
No, nobody. Okay, what are you watching in lockdown? It doesn't have to be Netflix. I was going to say Netflix, but I shouldn't go for any one brand, right?
What am I watching right now? I'm watching Snowfall on Disney Plus. It's about the cocaine epidemic in LA in the early 80s. It's kind of brutal, but it's great.
Oh, geez, I heard Snowfall on Disney Plus. I thought, was it about a little bear
apart from all the princess movies that I'm kind of forced through with my daughter.
Oh, you're forced through.
It's actually good.
Okay, well, I think Frozen's great, though I'm more partial to Tangled, but to each their own. Fab, any other questions, folks? He's here right before your eyes, the mighty Val. Get him in while you can.
I'll drop my LinkedIn in the chat if anyone wants to connect afterwards. I'm also on Twitter.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, Val. I think I speak for everyone when I say it's been incredibly insightful. Folks, please do connect with Val on LinkedIn, on Twitter. If you have a card to send, save the planet, do it through Thankbox. It's going to be brilliant. And thank you everyone for attending. I hope you found it useful. I'll be sending out a wee follow-up email, and we will be posting some of Val's thoughts probably to YouTube in the near future. So if you want to catch up, share with your friends and family, around the dinner table, huddle around the laptop and watch CodeBase on the couch. I can't think of a better thing to do with your family. There's nothing. So with that, everyone have a fantastic day. Thank you so much again, Val, for your time. And happy Thursday.
It was fun. Thanks.
Cheers, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye.